Such devastation!
Hello everybody, Girthquake here, and today we're going to be going over my Dot Shot 2.0. I said I would revise this build when I got a little bit better at dot in this game, and that day is here. Two things to go over before I started the build though. First and foremost, the technology that we are leveraging in this build is not my discovery. My good friend RATORE, a very intelligent gentleman who is responsible for an immense amount of knowledge that the Borderlands community uses day in and day out, is the one that discovered this. So if you ever see him around the community, make sure to thank him for all that he does. And the second thing to go over, this build will be revised on Mobalytics, so if you'd like to read the write-up on it, head on over. Let's get right into it. So again, I'm going to be leveraging the Stellium shotgun. This thing is crazy. These shotguns have insane ratios to damage. As you can see there, the shock dot is 27,000. We're going to be using that base shock dot to apply large fire dots with electrical fire. Electrical fire will apply a dot half of that. It does not use the fire ratio, which is half anyway, so it'd be the same thing on Malawan. So we can apply big fat dots at the same time. Then you use amp, you use on-shot bonuses, you use whatever you can to boost those dots. Gunsplash, boost those dots. Don't ask me why. Apparently, your dots are explosions as long as the weapon you're holding is also splash. Cool. So, moving on, the tech that RATORE discovered. High caliber. What high caliber does when you have it at 3 out of 3 is allows the bullets to pierce enemies. And if you played Zane in a Hustler Eraser build in Borderlands 3, you may know where this is going. You shoot the enemy while facing downward, get the explosion of your splash damage weapon to hit the ground and hit them twice. This applies 2 dots. Not every time, but more often than not, you get that double dot. Now, You can amp these projectiles, you can pump them up with on-shot buffs, do whatever. It gets doubled because you're getting that double dot. Again, this is RATORE's discovery. This is kind of crazy that he found this. The amount of damage you can pump out of these stelliums with this tech is absolutely nutty, as you saw in the boss clips. Now, you combine that with the MacLeod enhancement that guarantees a status effect on your reload for your first bullet. Amon has some decently snappy reloads. I didn't spec too far into that skill because I did have a gun reload speed passive here. But otherwise, it's relatively easy to handle because the stellium reload isn't even that bad. 2 seconds at base isn't that bad at all to be spamming, especially with the large, slow projectiles that now pass through enemies and have a chance to hit multiple enemies with a single shot. So, on top of that further, you see this is a Jacob's licensed stellium. Now, I know the Jacob's licensed is ripe for bullshit. This is not that kind of stuff. We're not using crit knife, none of that, no groundbreaker, no broken items. Rather than abusing the Jacob's ricochets, we're going to be using them for what they're meant to do. It's just ricochet once and hit another enemy. The thing is, it's a stellium shot, so when they apply a dot, that enemy dies. This is not a little like tickle to the enemy to their left. They're gonna die. So you end up with this stellium orb that behaves like a Jacob's bullet, but applies this massive doom dot. It's a lot of fun. It's a silly little play loop that allows you to constantly keep your hands moving if you don't like the more simple play styles. The slow moving orb also forces you to lead your shots, as you may see a few times in the gameplay clips. So it definitely keeps you on your toes. Now, due to the nature of the build, there aren't a whole lot of weapon selections. I have gotten the Hellfire to do some decent dots with this Torgue sticky part here. Sticky an enemy up and let it fly, and you will get a decently large fire dot. It does seem to be multiple dots at once, so the electrical fire dot won't be huge, but I'd love for this to be half decent, and it's okay. Asher's Rise is cool. Every single crit will apply a dot, and it fires pretty quickly, so you can actually stack up pretty large dots. Again, when you're stacking a bunch of little dots, electrical fire won't be doing much, but the dots themselves will be decently large. And of course, multiple elements of stelliums. This rad one is okay. I'm still looking for a good fire one. Haven't found it. As for the rest of the gear, I've got a triple bypass with amp. This is goated. It's kind of crazy how much better than all of the other rep kits this is. Anyway, moving on. Slippy is here not for looping kill skills this time. Slippy has a more precise purpose. This time around, it is for A, to apply weakness to whatever I'm throwing it at, and B, because it has a lot of hits. There's multiple little slippies that come out of it, and this one specifically has a 25% chance to deal a crit. Now, the reason I like that is because I need crits to increase the chance of status effect application from specialization. Anything I can do to increase that so those ricochets apply dots as well is a-okay in my book. Using a furnace for the incendiary damage and the points in Dragon's Breath. Fire dots as a ratio are less than shock dots on MacLeod weapons. Dragon's Breath will actually make you adopt that that fire dot ratio. So switching from shock to Dragon's Breath won't let you adopt that giant dot number. However, Dragon's Breath being an amp does increase the fire dot you have. So it's a little complicated to follow, but just know you do somewhat have to element match. Now that brings me to Radix. He's a little funny. Since I don't have an element that's just going to melt through both of his bars, I actually took the approach of shooting him with a Dragon's Breath shot and letting the protein cell damage do its thing. And that created a longer lasting shock dot because the protein cell damage applies to dots as well. It's unique in that aspect, and this is what I mentioned about the tech that I discovered. A friend of mine, Buckets of Woe, also discovered at the same time. We were little test buddies. So yeah, this bonus damage applies to everything. This is truly global bonus damage. Watts is not global. There are things that it doesn't apply to. Not protein, as far as I can tell. Everything gets it, including your bullets. And since it can apply its own dot along with the MacLeod enhancement, you get an even bigger shock dot. And then those dots get the protein cell bonus damage on its own. So you're almost in a sense double dipping this bonus damage. This shield is very good. The problem is you can't use it in mobbing because you'll die almost immediately. Amon can fix that in bossing though, temporarily. It is a dangerous strat. It can get you killed. But let's go over why he can use this shield. So this is a Calamity base build, just like last time when I went over dot shot. Go all the way down to electrical fire here. I am using Stormcutter to somewhat help loop my action skill, but that's not the main focus of it. The main focus is actually it's got a nice fast animation and I can send a melee hit at a far away enemy. The reason I want that fast animation is what I said about that shield. So the shield will drain itself and then direct any damage you take towards your health bar. This fills the shield up, and then this makes you invincible so you can tank a few hits while it's doing its thing. So you use this fast animation while you have Onslaughter active to keep the shield filled up. Sorry. Also, by the way, keeping Crackling Aegis going. And then use this to survive whatever's going on, because after that, whatever you shoot at will not survive. So to go over the rest of the skill tree, Impetus is just for some move speed at this point. I enjoy it because there's not a ton happening here. This is only a little bit of soup. You can put points into Discombobulate to help your fish crit a little bit more. It's not going to be a huge thing. To be honest, the whole top row isn't that crazy. But yeah, you could move the points here. It's 10% extra soup. It's really not that big. But Will of Storm for duration. Duration is very nice. You get the extra damage too. Gut Punch is 20% soup that goes towards anything. And Forged in Steel gets you the 8 seconds of invincibility, or I'm sorry, 6 seconds of invincibility after Forge skill, which you can use pretty often. Catastrophe. Catastrophe has a lot of synergy with a lot of different things. It's global crit chance. It can make your dots crit. It can make your bullets crit your skills. It doesn't matter. Anything can crit, and then those crits can then activate the specialization skill that increases your status chance. There's a lot of synergy going on. Dragon's Breath, as I said, is amp. Convert your shot to incendiary, so you can get big fat incendiary dots while using a shock weapon. Increased status effect and ordnance damage. We're here for the status effect while your shield is up. Electrical fire. This creates a dot that is half of what the dot that created it was. So if you create a shock dot that is 2,000, you will get a 1,000 fire dot, and vice versa. That is before health bar resistances are taken into account. Real quick to go over the equipped action skills before we get into the next tree. Onslaughter to keep your shield going. I really don't use it much in mobbing. It's not needed, but then the bonus can also create even more fire dots, which will get the protein cell bonus damage. Pyroclast. I was using this. The thought process was that the fire ticks around me would get the protein cell bonus damage, and I could possibly start the catastrophe and the specialization perk loop a little bit faster, but I'm not sure that's actually happening. You could use Force of Nature here. It wouldn't. I'm not sure it would really affect much on the build. Stormcutter. The idea is typically that you can use this to loop this, but they're really not needed in mobbing. It's completely unnecessary, to be completely honest. But you can do that. The option is there. This will be incendiary because of the Furnace Come. So Executioner. This is skill crit. Skill crit is chunky. Skill crit is good. Get the let out, reload speed, because we're reloading all the time. This is helpful for boss damage. You wouldn't think the bonus shock damage would be that big, especially with that short duration, but if you notice in my boss clips, I always reload right before the kill, because guess what? This is more dot. More dot gets more protein cell. So, shock dots are our thing here. This is just soup. Soup for it all. Soup, soup, soup. And then finally, Wrath of Nature for status effect application chance. That's helpful for our ricochets and for our piercing bullets from high caliber. Because again, the Maliwan status effect chance enhancement is on hit. You get one hit. It does not guarantee any hits after that. So you want to pump the application chance. So we'll get into specializations. One shot, one kill. I'm not 100% sure. I believe this is on shot though, I think. On shot is what you want. It increases dot. I haven't tested that personally yet, but it's not hurting anything because there's not a ton of choices. Contamination, this is what I mentioned earlier. Critical hits grant increased status effect application chance. Catastrophe gives global crit chance. Bullet Train, I like it. It's really not doing anything here. Gun damage does not increase your dot damage unless somebody can find me a dot that's also a gun. I mean, they're also explosions at this point, so why not? The best defense. Overall, you're not going to be getting hit very often because you're going to be murdering everybody. So, I don't know how much this is actually doing, but that's, it's 30% soup for everything that you have. Can't hurt. But that is the build, everybody. Dot Shot 2.0. If you have any questions, concerns about anything, come on down to my Discord, ask a question, pick up a save file. It might not be ready right away. I do have to decrypt it and do my thing, and sometimes I get lazy and forget. But otherwise, there's a whole bunch of smart people ready to answer all sorts of questions. We are working on the damage formulas to find all sorts of funny interactions if you want to get in on the ground floor of this theory crafting stuff. And as always, everybody, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.